everyone, this is Sage TDS. Today we are going to be trying out a new kind of video. For years I've been making almost exclusively Euro Truck and American Truck Sim content. But I decided it would be a good idea to show other kinds of games and interests that I have, such as what I'm going to showcase today, which is the new Campaign Trail. It's a elections game in on the internet. You can find it simply by searching New Campaign Trail on Google, or with the website URL newcampaigntrail.com/campaigntrail/index.html. You can select a year and a candidate to run as in a presidential election. You answer questions about your platform and positions, and also about your campaign strategy, and really decide how you campaign. The answers you give to questions affect your popularity for better or for worse, both nationwide and in regions and states. You want to walk the fine line between appealing to your base and winning majority of states. And there's also lots of mods, because there's a limited number of elections that are officially scenarios in the main game, but you can open the mod loader and look at tons of different things, some of which aren't even American presidential elections. Some are not in America, some are like ancient history, I guess. Some are alternate histories. Today, we're gonna go back in time to 1860, which was the first presidential election won by a Republican, specifically Abraham Lincoln, widely considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest president in American history. Abraham Lincoln runs as a Republican against his rival Stephen A. Douglas. Stephen Douglas was the Northern Democratic presidential nominee. The Democratic Party was split in this election. Southern Democrats nominated Vice President John C. Breckinridge. And there was also some disaffected former Whigs. Whigs were the main opposition to the Democrats before they dissolved in 1854. Most Whigs went to the Republicans eventually, while some formed the Know Nothing Party in 1856 and ran former President Millard Fillmore. And then some, in 1860, created the Constitutional Union Party and ran a guy called John Bell, whose pretty much sole political position was maintaining the Union with no real coherent platform other than that. But in the northern states, the main competition was Lincoln versus Douglas. In the South, Lincoln was despised and basically received no votes. And the main competition in the South was between Breckinridge and Bell. Douglas himself wasn't even really popular in the South, but in the North it was Lincoln versus Douglas. So slavery is the dominant issue and has caused two splinter candidates to step forward, Breckinridge and Bell, both with Southern roots. Lincoln begins with the nationwide lead and simply must hold his Northern coalition together to take the victory. The other three candidates must find some way to prevent a Lincoln victory, because they're all anti-Lincoln to varying degrees, in varying ways. They're all definitely less anti-slavery than him. Although this is important to note, he didn't outright support abolition at the time. And I'm gonna let you all know, I'm gonna warn you, there's a lot of just me reading text in these videos if I'm gonna make this into a series. So, Abraham Lincoln begins to campaign in a strong position. The new Republican Party is largely united, and his advantage in several northern states is overwhelming. The challenge will be to win the closer states like his home state of Illinois, New York, and Ohio. Illinois was also the home state of Douglas, too. To do so, to win, he must finesse several hot issues of the day, not the least of which is slavery. Other Republican issues, such as tariffs, homesteads, and a transcontinental railroad, also dominate the discussion. And selecting your running mate is Hannibal Hamlin of Maine, senator, former governor, and a longtime opponent of slavery. It was this issue that caused him to change his allegiance from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party in 1856, in the aftermath of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which opened up the possibility of slavery in the territories of Kansas and Nebraska, which basically was a continuation of the Compromise of 1850, overturning the Missouri Compromise, which said originally no slavery north of the 3630 parallel, except for places where it already exists, including Missouri. So Hamlin will help to balance the ticket regionally, being from like the easternmost state in the north, as opposed to Lincoln being from Illinois, which at the time was kind of out west, and give it name recognition since he's at the time more well known than Lincoln, who is just a former congressional candidate, former congressman and Senate candidate who actually almost defeated Stephen Douglas in an 1858 Senate election. So, question 1 out of 25. Most of these games have 25 questions. All the official ones do, I think. There are mods in which there are more questions, I believe. Well, I know that for a fact. So, how should your party address the slavery issue during this campaign? I'm not going to read out all the answers in order to save time. I'll just select what I personally favor as Lincoln. We must remain steadfast against the acquisition of new territories, and we must combat the expansion of slavery to the extent permitted by the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision. This is what Lincoln's platform basically was in 1860. And this is right in line with the preferred Republican platform, yeah. This is before 1916, before like the 1900s, 1910s, when candidates began regularly actually campaigning in person. Before the 20th century, presidential candidates largely ran what we call a front porch campaign, in which they stayed home while their surrogates, their supporters, went around the country campaigning for them. So, in this scenario in 1860, there's no selecting states to visit, but in later scenarios there will be. What do you have to say about the merits of your running mate, Hannibal Hamlin? I'm proud to share a ballot with Hannibal Hamlin of Maine. Hamlin is a solid choice and a good party man. This part is the advisor feedback, which you get for quite a few, but not all, answers that you give to questions. Some questions have no advisor feedback regardless of the answer you pick. Some have advisor feedback depending on which answer you pick, and some have it regardless of whatever answer you pick. You'll get some sort of it. To what extent do you plan to personally campaign in this election? I will not leave Springfield, but I will make several public speeches and pronouncements to make my positions clear. How aggressively should your party attack the Southern Democrats and John Breckinridge in this election? The Southern Democrats are an easy target for attack. We can excite our core voters while risking little if we denounce them. It's a small thing, but it does help with the abolitionist bloc to remind them of the alternatives out there. We just need to let you know, it appears that your opponents have consolidated into a fusion ticket in the states of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. I see. We shall do our best in any case. Hopefully you're far enough ahead in New York and Pennsylvania that this fusion ticket doesn't matter. How aggressively should your party attack the Northern Democrats and Stephen A. Douglas in this election? Douglas and his party are running on the failed, dishonest policy of popular sovereignty. I want the Republicans to point this out at every opportunity. The Democrat-Republican rivalry is alive and well, regardless of your encouragement or lack thereof. How aggressively should your party attack the constitutional unionists and John Bell in this election? Maybe a couple of general statements against them, but overall we should avoid doing anything which might alienate former Whigs from joining the Republicans. How much should your party emphasize its support of a transcontinental railroad in this election? Everybody wants a transcontinental railroad, and Republicans have supported this since the beginning. Thousands of young men have formed paramilitary wide-awake clubs and marched to support Republicans. Should your party embrace this support, or is it too divisive? Every party has political clubs and supporters. I'm proud that we have ours, and they will help drive us to victory in November. Would you support a compromise amendment to the Constitution, which permanently protected slavery in the southern states in return for no further expansion of the institution? I would not support any amendment that irrevocably protects slavery in the South. We would have to see if a more narrow compromise was possible. How much should your party emphasize its support of higher tariffs in this election? Our party supports a high tariff, and I'm proud of that fact. We need to emphasize this point during our campaign. If any southern state was to secede, would you use military force as president to preserve the Union? Foreshadowing. The Union is the most important object, and we will do anything we must to preserve it. You've been asked about this question ad nauseum, but what is there to really say about it? What is your position on the Supreme Court's Dred Scott v. Sanford decision? This is the most odious, dangerous decision to be handed down in the history of the court. What is to prevent the court from forcing slavery next upon the states themselves under some dubious interpretation? It is to this day widely considered the worst decision in Supreme Court history. How much should your party emphasize its support of a Homestead Act in this election? The core belief of our party is that the federal territories should be settled by honest, free, hard-working men and their families. A Homestead Act will be right in line with this philosophy. This is right in line with the preferred Republican platform. Some of these advisor feedbacks are copy and pasted if it's, merely questions about the platform like this. Do you have anything to say about the efforts of some to reopen the Atlantic slave trade, which was closed in the 1807, by the way? I'm sure the fact that this is even under consideration as a demand shows how far beyond compromise the South has drifted. Should the proposed constitution for the state of Kansas be accepted by Congress and Kansas admitted as a free state? We support the admission of Kansas as a free state as soon as possible. And it was admitted to the Union as a free state in April 1861, just after Lincoln took office, and at the exact same time as the outbreak of the Civil War. What is your position on the social equality of blacks in American society? The idea that we support social equality for blacks in society is a canard put down by the Democrats in a clumsy and transparent attempt to score political points. What is your position on the passage of personal liberty laws by various states to flout the Fugitive Slave Act? I support the personal liberty laws and would favor a repeal or scaling back of the fugitive slave law. What position should your party take on foreign immigration and nationalization in this election? Now, this was a big divide between Republicans and Northerners in 1856, 1860, because they were both nativists who, back in 56, supported the Know Nothing Party, as well as, supporters of immigration. Now, lots of immigrants, particularly the Irish and German Catholics, supported the Democratic Party, and Catholics were a key constituency of the Democratic Party well into the 20th century, although they've mostly assimilated into the, I guess, establishment of American culture and are electorally pretty similar to mainline Protestants. Definitely not as electorally similar to evangelical Protestants, but certainly not as Democratic leaning as they were back in the day. However, lots of German immigrants, German Protestants, were supportive of Republicans, especially in the Midwest, where there were lots of close states up for grabs. So Germans are a key part of our new party and our vote in the Midwest. Let's express our support for the current naturalization laws, which at the time were very lenient and basically were all the way into the 1920s, when there was a real crackdown on immigration from Europe. Better to keep the German vote in line. A few know-nothings in the North may vote for Bell, but they are more likely to despise Stephen A. Douglas and vote for the man who could beat him. Do you support the further expansion of the United States into Mexico, Cuba, or the Caribbean? We oppose any effort to extend the current borders of the United States. They are plainly driven by the slave states, who want more territory to be incorporated as slave states, like Cuba and parts of Mexico that border Texas, and even other islands in the Caribbean other than Cuba. I bet some would support annexing Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and turning them into slave states. Absurd. What should your party's position be on the raid of John Brown late in 1859? Whatever our private feelings, we have no choice but to denounce such extra-legal actions. Avoid controversy, that's the way to go. Do you have any plans to reach out to your chief rival for the Republican nomination, William Seward, and reconcile? We will send overtures to Mr. Seward and invite him to come visit us in Springfield. It's important to have a united party. It's good to have a united party heading into the fall. Make sure to keep Seward happy if you win. What is your position on the creation of land-grant universities for secondary education? Yes, let's emphasize our support of this measure. We stand behind education and the expansion of opportunity. Do you have any comments on the Lemon v. New York case, which may be making its way to the Supreme Court? Now, I actually don't know much about this decision. I'm very well versed in American history and politics, and even lots of Supreme Court cases, but not about Lemon. But if the court rules that slaves can be brought into free states without consequence, then we will effectively have a slave nation on our hands. This is the type of Southern aggression that we must be ever vigilant against. Is there a particular state that you believe the party should concentrate its resources during the final days of the campaign? Let's keep our efforts broadly focused on the North. Good luck with the election, Mr. Lincoln, and may God be with you. Election night has arrived. Settle in and wait for the returns, however long it may take. Best of luck. And you have the option to either just sit and let them slowly roll in, or you could just skip and go to the final results. We're going to let it roll in slowly. So, So far, all the southern states have gone to Breckenridge, and all the northern states have gone to Lincoln. Although, there we have Kentucky going to Bell. In our timeline, Bell won Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Those are all slave states that were also relatively close to the North. Border states, you might call them. But the rest of the South went to Breckenridge. And just like that, we've won the election. Don't celebrate just yet, however. Word has already arrived that South Carolina is planning a secession convention, with other states soon to follow. Your presidency will surely be defined by how you deal with this challenge. Will you take a hard line against this action, seek a compromise amendment to protect slavery, or simply allow the states to secede? There are few good choices for you. And in this election, Lincoln only won a plurality of the popular vote. But thanks to how the Electoral College works, he won the vast majority of northern states, which allowed him to win a majority of electoral votes. And Stephen Douglas was his only real opposition in the North. You can see 54 to 44. It was more competitive out west in California and Oregon. Breckenridge did have a strong presence in those states. Minnesota 63 to 34. Wisconsin 57 to 42. Illinois 50 to 48. Michigan 57 to 42. Indiana 50 to 43. Ohio 51 to 44. Pennsylvania, with this fusion ticket of Breckenridge and Douglas, still losing to Lincoln 56 to 44. New Jersey went to Douglas, well, the fusion state, the fusion ticket of Douglas and Breckenridge, 52 to 48 over Lincoln. Fusion ticket in New York, Lincoln defeated Douglas Breckenridge 53 to 47. New England was a stronghold for the Republicans. Looks like Lincoln won every state handily there. Definitely a realigning election. And from 1860 to 1928, all but 4 of the elections will be won by Republicans. So I'll see you all next time. This is a new type of content that I hope to improve in and increase focus on while maintaining the production that I have for Truck Sim and other games. So take care, everyone. Goodbye.